So this is Shar Douglas. She is a powerhouse marketer, a creative strategist whose fingerprints are really all over some of the biggest moments in creator culture, music, and digital storytelling. She's the founder and CEO of Epiphany Society and a sought after fractional CMO and advisor. But your career spans some of the most influential brands on the planet throughout your career. You've worked with brands like YouTube, Shutterfly, and Jay-Z's music streaming platform Tidal. Her work has sparked global conversations and industry change, and she's helped launch YouTube's $100 million Black Creator Fund, which went on to win major recognition. And she was recognized on Ad Age's 40 Under 40 list and was named one of the top 10 media and entertainment marketers you should follow. Her campaigns have earned honors like Nielsen Social's most talked about documentary for Demi Lovato's Simply Complicated. Basically, if you tip this lady's head sideways, gold would fall out. Ladies and gentlemen, Shar Douglas.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's an amazing resume and an incredible professional background, but I would also love to just hear a little bit about you outside of work. Like, introduce yourself to us outside of your business.
Sure. I'm a mom, so I have a 4-year-old son named Camden. He is rambunctious and sweet. I actually try to teach him a little bit about marketing, and sometimes I let him look at different assets and tell me which one he likes. Usually they're purple. He's got a favorite color.
Yeah.
I love pickleball, like really, really love pickleball. I play twice a week with my husband and then some other friends.
Love it.
And then I was actually just sharing with another founder. She was talking about the power of community. And she's, I think, got a creative writing group, but I've got a book club. And so everywhere I've moved, I've started a book club, partially to make friends and build my own community, but also they've just been such kind of transformative experiences when you think about getting to know immediate friends and then new friends as someone invites someone else in.
Okay, well, I would love to learn a little bit more about the work that you do as a fractional CMO and kind of how your career has led you to this point.
Sure. I think, coming from big corporate, you kind of get into this phase where you're so senior that you're not necessarily touching the work and you're mostly navigating your relationships with your either CEO or the other C-suite or ELT or executive leadership teams. And I was actually missing that connection point to the end user. And Tidal, when we were working with artists, and even the same when I was at YouTube working with creators, even as senior as I was becoming and growing in my career, I'd still need to be on set for shoots. And you could start to see, okay, this artist is in our program, but they still actually need help to do the business of their own marketing well. Even if they were on a label, sometimes you're at the lowest of the totem pole. And so I started to just see this opportunity for me in that I'm getting so much value and enjoyment out of this one-on-one, quicker turn advice and help that I was offering. I ultimately actually did I'm trying to think about this. I started Epiphany Society as a side hustle during COVID. So I was working at YouTube and then was also starting to consult with small businesses, a couple of friends that had businesses that needed help. And then ultimately I had enough clients where I'm like, okay, I can actually do this full time, make a living. And so for me, that has been nice. I don't think I'm a risky person, but in this moment when you're starting to build a family, making that jump to entrepreneurship, I wanted to feel really solid. And I would say, 5 years later, a lot of what I do now is understanding, okay, you've got your clients and then you're also building at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what an amazing skill set to have during a time in COVID where people are just really fighting to stay afloat. Like it's a real strategy move to be able to just pop up your business and consult with people kind of on a project to project basis.
I honestly say some of the clients I had during COVID, I was like partially offering just emotional support of, you know what, actually, this is a good idea. You should continue to invest your time in it. And then even just quick things. Like I remember the original way this started was a friend was starting a business during COVID because we all had so much time.
Yep.
And she was just sending me different assets. I think it was like an Eventbrite page. And I was like, oh, actually, you need to flip the hierarchy here, maybe a banner. And then from there, I was like, oh, this is fun. And I think something I really love about consulting, especially with small businesses, is that you can see the impact immediately. And then the moment when the founders I work with can then do this as a full-time
Mm.
business and move away from it as a side hustle is just so rewarding. It unlocks, I know the joy I get from getting to own my own schedule with a little kid. So getting to also be able to help set someone else up to do
Yeah.
that, it just feels incredible. It's almost a little bit addicting, honestly. But it's really it makes me feel so good to help. And that's why even when you guys invited me back, this is exactly the stage of founder that's really exciting to work with.
Yeah, that is really good to hear. And you spoke a lot in your session about as a small business owner or a founder, how it can be difficult to prioritize marketing. It can be sometimes perceived as not essential to operations, which can really be a detriment to the founder. And you said most founders wait too long to run ads. And if you aren't a celebrity, organic just won't do it. Which, thank you for just saying the truth. I think a lot of times we can be tempted to just say, we're just going to go grassroots.
Mhm.
We'll let the people tell us if they're interested, but really marketing has to be strategic. And I am curious from that stage of, early startup founder small businesses, where would you encourage them if they have maybe more time than they have money, where they can put those resources to lay some foundations for their marketing that will pay them back in the future, even if it's not ad dollars?
Sure. I would say twofold: data. Data is number one, because if you can understand and use that time to understand what's happening on the marketing channels that you're operating on, that can help you identify drop off points,
Yeah.
breakage points. That's all free. The fixes may not necessarily be free, it's still your time, but data is the first one. And then the second one is sort of that high impact landing page. Where are you driving? What is that destination that you're sending your customers or your visitors to? Is that operating as intended? And see if it's not, where can you optimize and make improvements? The other thing that's free, honestly, is content. Blog posts. I think what's really interesting right now that's happening with SEO and discovery and AI, there's a place there, I think, for founders to relook at how they've written their blogs and make updates and tweaks, adding more FAQs. So there's definitely space for sweat equity, of
Yeah.
course, in marketing. And those are some of the places I would point them into.
I love that. And you also mentioned UTM
Mhm.
links, which is an amazing way that you can stand up maybe that
Yeah.
one, if you have money for one amazing landing page, you can set up those links for different platforms to know which of your efforts are pointing more people towards that page.
100%. And I think what I've noticed too is there's such a desire to be everywhere, and then you're not doing anything well. And so, if anything, I would also encourage founders to just be able to look at their marketing strategy and say, I am excellent at insert this channel. Because that's where I start to see that we're switching channels. We don't commit to anything. And ultimately, we all do want some form of results. And so, if you can
Yeah.
at least say you're doing one thing well, even that is a good start.
I think for a lot of founders, there's a tendency for marketing to be reactive versus proactive. This thing happened, so I'm going to post about it. And there's very little strategy. But in your time at YouTube, you helped shift their creator social from reactive to a proactive strategy, driving massive jumps, 46 million plus views, 3.8 million engagements, and billions of impressions. What mindset shifts or tactics helped to unlock that growth?
Going back to data, and when we were in the conversation today, someone mentioned trends. We started actually thinking about momentum, and it was really, really cool. We had a great, actually, data scientist who was working with us, but we were actually starting to look at topics and see which topics are actually moving more quickly than others. So almost catching the momentum and being able to identify a trend before it happens. And so then if you think about, if you can catch a trend before it happens, but it's taking off, we can actually create a campaign that can launch just as the zeitgeist is taking hold of it. We also had to do this the reverse when you think about crisis management. I don't know if anyone remembers, like, the Tide Pods. And
Oh, yeah.
that was like part of my job on social media was creating the anti-Tide Pods campaign because we could see the momentum of videos with this content increasing on the
Hang
platform.
on, anti-Tide Pod campaign.
So helping people realize that actually this is not a campaign. This is not content that you should be posting. We
Yeah.
understand that you want to go viral and you're seeing that this is viral, but actually this is a campaign to help you understand that we are going to start, taking this content down, etc. And so a campaign like that for YouTube it would live on social. We might even send an email to all creators. But being able to get ahead of some of these crises is also just another place where the understanding the momentum
Yeah.
of content that was coming onto the platform is something where you can kind of take advantage on the positive, but also on the reactive side. But Pinterest actually does a really good job of helping small businesses identify upcoming trends because something that's interesting about Pinterest is if you think about the way that platform works, people are planning. I'm going to go to a bachelorette party. I'm planning my wedding. So you can actually get in front of them before they've made those purchases. And so from a B2C perspective, I think I think they're doing some really interesting things with their content and data that they're sharing back with businesses.
That is very interesting because you would traditionally not think of Pinterest as a place to put ads or really to
No.
put anything besides crafts, DIYs.
Yeah, but people are planning outfits, thinking about future vacations. I've gotten mood boards as a wedding guest. So it's really interesting when you start to think about, well, how much conviction do you have about what you're observing that's happening now and what you think is going to happen in the future?
Yeah.
And how can you kind of intercept that and be part of the conversation as quickly as possible?
That is really interesting. I'm sure from, being on the inside of YouTube, there might be more opportunity for you to see where trends are heading.
100%.
So how, for the lay folk out here, how would you go about anticipating a trend and being in the front wave? Or this maybe is a two-part question, but even from, your work with multiple clients, has there been a time that you've created a trend?
I would say the trends we've created have definitely been at the larger companies because we can actually put the media spend behind it and the media spend, but with influencers to create that swell. You can still do it with more grassroots, but harder to do, or do it very locally where you can kind of hit a trend or kind of go viral in your town.
Yeah.
But in terms of being able to think about trends, I actually always like to go back to cultural moments and just go back and look at the calendar. We're in November. We know it's winter, it's Thanksgiving, the holidays are coming up. What trends were starting to happen last year that might still come back on a seasonal level? So when you're kind of just looking more qualitatively, just kind of being observant, what's happening either seasonally year over year or shifting from spring to summer. But also I'm just paying attention. So I'm trying to be, I'll say, observant around what's happening. Right now, most of my clients are B2C, so I'm very focused on kind of what's happening with each of their individual industries. But then there's also access to great websites with great statistical reports that come out. And so for me, I'm trying to get a pulse on what access to data I do have. Sometimes I pay for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm trying to use a free resource. And then I love Reddit. I seriously love Reddit. Like anytime I have a question, I'm either going to like ChatGPT or I'm going to Reddit. Like, what does everyone think about? Insert whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so even just this idea of kind of community and social listening, when I've been at bigger companies, we've had tools, and actually Sprout is a fairly affordable tool for folks if they want to use it. But sometimes just getting in those threads, you can get a pretty good sense with like 30 minutes in a particular thread on a particular topic. So I'd say use everything that you have to your disposal and then, do the best you can.
Shar, you were the CMO at Tidal, which, as we previously mentioned, is the music streaming platform that was purchased by Jay-Z, relaunched as a creator first platform owned in part by artists like Beyonce, Nicki Minaj,
Mhm.
Rihanna, Alicia Keys, a ton of big names. When you joined in 2022, what was kind of the state of affairs there, and what initiatives did you really focus on?
Sure. So when I joined Tidal, the main kind of ask when I was recruited to them was, can you build an artist ecosystem for us where we're building a community and we can actually find a way to not only uplift authentically artists, but also use that as a brand lever. And what was really
Hmm.
interesting about the state that Tidal was in is they had recently been purchased by Square. So Square then rebranded as Block. So Block now has Square, Cash App, Tidal, and several other kind of like Bitcoin initiatives.
Interesting.
Many people actually kind of forget this, that like Tidal and Cash App and Square are all actually part of
That's
Block.
kind of a crazy portfolio.
It is. It's really interesting. And so when I was there, that acquisition had just gone through. They were trying to merge even kind of OG music industry team with now folks who've spent their careers in tech, may
Mhm.
or may not have a content background.
Yeah.
So even though my initial kind of charter was, okay, focused on artist marketing and help us build this program, which we ultimately launched as Title Rising, giving grants directly to artists and setting them up with kind of mentorship and support, a huge part of my job was also helping them understand, how do you run a tech content platform. We were also trying to pivot from being listener first to artist first and offering tools and services to the artists instead of just a music streaming
Yeah.
platform. So there were many shifts that we were trying to make there, but Tidal Rising, I think, is the one program that we were able to get off the ground with really great success for not only Tidal and the lift that we saw as a brand, but also the choices we made in terms of the artists that got to participate in that program. I still follow them and I'm still following their career. Some of them got nominated for their first Grammys while they were
Wow.
part of this program. Then were able to go on bigger tours. Some were able to use the money that we invested in them for up leveling their music video or hiring better producers and better engineers. So I would say for me, Tidal was my first real foray into music, but it was so similar to how we approached creators at YouTube that I felt like we were able to kind of push them forward. And I'd say now Tidal is more kind of like trying to figure out where their product set really does lie and are they the best company positioned to kind of offer some of those services, tools, and products directly to artists.
Is there anyone that you met at that job that you were starstruck by? Or have you just always been cool?
I'm trying to think about this. You know what's interesting about, I'll say, artists and celebrities is not so much starstruck because I've gotten to meet a lot of really interesting celebrities. It's more actually watching their process
Mm.
of becoming a celebrity and when they're in the eye and when they're just themselves away, like in the green room or beforehand. And so when I was at YouTube watching the creators literally like power up
Yeah.
to go like and have
Okay.
that high energy content and then power back down and be kind of like an introvert,
Yeah.
I think was really shocking and interesting to me. And then watching the precision with which artists conduct themselves, whether it's a visual performance or it's just sound, and then the vulnerability of them sharing like unreleased music with us.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say I felt more special and really cool
Yeah.
experiences more so than like, oh my goodness.
Right.
But I do think both of those gave me a completely new appreciation for just the level of energy that it takes to be on camera in front of an audience, which you kind of know, but then to see it in person is huge.
Completely. I think there's probably a huge misconception that, and maybe less so now that artists have social platforms where they kind of share behind the scenes, but I think there's historically been a big misconception around what the life of a creator is. It's not easy. It's probably all consuming, right?
It is, and actually that's one of the kind of grounding insights we had both at YouTube and Tidal is that these creators are very, very time constrained. And then if you think about even just marketing yourself. First, they're like, I'm a YouTube creator's like, I got to be on YouTube. Now I got to be on Musically, which then became TikTok. And now I need to be on so many different platforms. The platforms are changing constantly. How do you keep up with it all? And I remember we were doing an interview with some creators, and they just kept saying, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. I feel like I can't even take a vacation because I need to get my content up and be consistent. And so I've really kind of held that close when I think about not only working with creators, artists, but even working with founders. I think it's the same kind of feeling of just not having enough time to do it all. And that's why I always keep recommending prioritize, because you just won't be able to do it all.
Absolutely. Throughout your career, you've managed many high-performing teams, and specifically at YouTube, you built and led a multinational team of, what, 15 plus people? I'm interested to know, what's an important skill to have that helps you manage multinational teams
Oh,
across
sure.
cultures?
So moving to London was really interesting for me because I was heading up the EMEA team as the American coming over from headquarters. So quite frankly, many of the multinational partners were like, well, why didn't we hire someone who was already in market?
Mm.
So I already knew that I was kind of coming in with a little bit of hesitation.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was actually one, just show everyone that I'm here to listen and I'm here to help. Granted, I am coming over from headquarters, but I am
HR
actually,
sent me.
right? But I am actually here to be on your team. And so I did a lot of listening. I can't tell you how many times I was flying to the different markets, going to them, showing them that I'm listening, and then coming back to them and saying, okay, here's what I captured. Here's how I think it can fit into the strategy we're already building. But you've also maybe noted something that we weren't aware of, and I do think it's important, and I'm going to highlight it. So
Yeah.
being able to have a little bit of that give and take in that listening to strategy process. And then also just being humble and trying to show them I'm learning the language
Yeah.
locally, I'm learning the culture, I'm trying to actually be part of this ecosystem versus coming in and being very top down. And then what was interesting for me is managing sort of the different cultural nuances and tones and just trying to kind of make sure that with every interaction, and it was mentally exhausting because, sometimes you're in a meeting with people from multiple countries whose first language isn't English, but they're
Sure.
quite good at English. And so even being able to create presentations that everyone could understand. But I will say, once you kind of hit that flow and trust with my stakeholders, we were really able to create some really great campaigns and projects.
Yeah. What was it like living in London? Was that your first time living abroad?
It was my first time living abroad. I loved it. I loved it. I'd been actually wanting to move abroad since business school. When we were doing our summer internships, I had originally gone into business school thinking I would try to do an internship in London. I ended up meeting my boyfriend like months before business school, and he was in San Francisco. So then I was like, we want to be together. We're already doing long distance.
Yes.
But then being able to have that opportunity to live in London was incredible. The people, the history, and then also just the access to travel. I felt like every weekend we're like at Heathrow or at City Airport jumping around, and Paris is a train ride away, so many places. So
That's the
I think
best.
we honestly, to do that also pre-kid, so we just had, we
Yeah.
could go anywhere, anytime.
Completely.
Was amazing. But I think about one trip I had to go to, so hard. I had to go to Egypt to
Ugh.
go look at a project the local Egypt team was doing. And my husband was able, I think the project was like a Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Friday I had off. So my husband flew down Friday, and then we had the weekend. We looked at the pyramids, and just having those experiences where I'm on a work level just learning so much about a new country that I've never visited, but then to get to also do a true bucket list
Oh, yeah.
activity while you're while you're at work was also just incredible.
That is unreal. Bucket list moment.
Completely. And I think I really try to encourage everyone that I mentor, if they have an opportunity to either work on a small project abroad or to move abroad, to do that as early as possible. It completely opened up my eyes into honestly how the world works,
Mhm.
how different businesses conducted. And now I've got friends all over the world. And, that's also really exciting too.
Yeah. Okay, tell me more about this campaign for Demi Lovato's
Oh my
documentary.
gosh.
Because I myself am a fan of Miss Demetria, and I need to know more.
You know what? Demi Lovato was a really, really fun project. And actually, I wasn't starstruck with her, but her voice is incredible. Like,
Oh, yeah.
we would hear her rehearsing because this documentary we did was about just how we're all simply complicated. We're this and we're that. And so actually we did a really cool campaign on social. And then it all culminated in a premiere with creators and her fans all kind of gamifying their presence on social. So the more you posted about Demi Lovato and being simply complicated yourself, we had this like word generator where you could choose which words you were and then post on social.
Yeah.
And so then we ultimately, if you garnered enough engagement, then you won a trip to the premiere. It was crazy.
That is crazy.
It was like an octopus of a campaign,
Oh my
but it was
gosh.
also like any idea was like layering on. I think if I remember correctly, Ulta was the sponsor. So we had a whole makeover station and it's in Hollywood. It was so cool. But what was really funny about this project is because it's YouTube, it's actually grounded in this documentary that's coming out. So we're getting like first cuts of the documentary and the director's like, hey, like, what do you think? So I'm like, Shane, I'm going to watch this Demi Lovato
Am I a
documentary
producer?
and like give her some notes. Like,
Sorry, I can't talk. Demi's waiting for my
yeah.
notes.
But it was so funny because there was this soundbite where it'd be like, hi, it's Demi Lovato and I'm simply complicated or something like that. This little soundbite that she had. And my husband had to hear it so many times that even randomly, if something going on is a little bit tough, he's like, I'm simply complicated. But it was a really fun
That is
campaign.
so great.
The documentary was excellent. And just getting to be someone who could kind of participate and kind of lead my social team on that exercise was really, really fun.
That is so cool. And you know what? Shout out to the partners of marketers because they hear stuff over and
Oh
over
my
and
goodness.
over.
So many times he's going to laugh actually that I was telling that story.
He's simply complicated.
Yes, he really is.
That is so funny. Okay, well, I have a little bit of a hot take that I wanted to get your POV on. And maybe it's not a hot take, but I think we might be in the dawn of swag becoming recognized as earned media. Campaigns like the Delta Airline holiday, employee swag drop. There was this campaign I saw where Miu Miu sent out PR gifting of tiny microphones to creators with Miu Miu on the microphone. And it was completely able to overshadow a viral video of an influencer unboxing their product, and the product was literally falling apart. But all people remember was this amazing gift that they sent out. And I think swag and apparel has maybe traditionally been sidelined as a top priority in marketing because there's little to no attribution for it. But I'm curious what your take is on
I
swag.
actually completely agree. I think YouTube was excellent at swag. And I think what was really interesting is if someone is actually willing to wear your brand in public, that is actual advocacy.
Yeah.
So I do think it's earned media. And something we actually used to do at YouTube is we were able to, pull, okay, we're gifting whatever it is, add a hashtag to it. And we were actually able to track the mentions, the reshare. So you can actually really quantify that. But swag is also really hard to come up with a good idea that meets the moment. We were really big, and I still am, about high quality swag as well, because even if your brand is maybe kind of in the middle for that person, if the idea is really cool or the execution is really good. I know I worked for a company, I won't name it, but the brand was a little bit challenged, but we created a really great sweatshirt. I still see
The
it.
brand was fugly, wasn't it?
It was interesting, but the sweatshirt was so comfortable, and we threw this really big launch campaign. And I will still sometimes, when I'm back in the Bay Area, I will still see sometimes people wearing the sweatshirt because it was really good quality.
That is amazing.
And I think these are some of the nuances where, it's YouTube, we have higher budgets, so we can kind of afford to do some of these kind of higher ticket items when it comes to awareness and some of this earned visibility. But I do actually believe in it. And even today, I gave away notebooks and a pen. Those are
Yeah.
actually nice notebooks, and those are actual pens that I would write with, because I think there's just a connectivity on, okay, if it's high quality, you already have a little bit of a higher chance of them
You are so
using it.
right. As soon as I clocked that felt tip, I said, I'm putting that in my
Yes, you're gonna
pocket.
keep it. I wish I could have branded it, but you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
But again, it's like thinking about, okay, what am I actually giving someone? And you've got a kid, so you're going to these birthday parties, and it's like we all just get a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
And so when I'm thinking about swag for my founders or even for myself, I am trying to think about, okay, well, what do they need in this moment? What is the highest quality version I can afford? And then I think what Miu Miu did, which is really cool, is like, we're giving this to influencers. What do they need? I'm trying to think of some of the fun. Once we did pillows actually during COVID for YouTube. We did
That's good.
robes. We did robes.
Yeah.
So there's always these kind of fun executions where it doesn't have to be so tied to the business, but it could
Yes.
be just something they need in their life that they're going to use and then talk about. So
Yeah.
I think it's still a hot take in the industry, quite frankly, but I'm a big fan
Yeah.
of swag.
Okay. Great to know. Okay. My last question for you. Have you ever pulled a stunt? For example, this entire podcast is a PR stunt because we had all these amazing people coming to speak. And I pretty much just said to the team, see if you can get some of these people to come on our podcast. So they just emailed you and said, can you be on the
Yeah.
podcast? And I thought, probably everyone was going to say, no, I'm too busy. People said yes. And suddenly I looked up and said,
I have a podcast.
this is not a real podcast.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here you are sitting with us.
Yeah.
And, the strategy will come after, but I think sometimes you just have to act on what's in front of you and just like wing it and pull a little bit of a stunt to get where you want to go. And I'm curious if you've ever done that in your career.
Less for me specifically, but there were a couple of projects where we're like, we got to swing really big. And one project, I won't give all of the names, but we needed social mentions for a particular campaign. And someone had pulled the data and they were like, do you know about this K-pop band? It was all guys. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name. It was like before Blackpink, there were these other guys.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
I want to say like B something.
I know who you're talking about because the main guy, they tried to enroll him in the army and he got out because he was performing.
Maybe. But I will never forget at some point someone was like, yeah, and because it's YouTube, you can do this.
BTS.
Yes, BTS. I was like, I know it's a letter with B in it.
Yeah.
But we basically reached out to BTS as YouTube and we were like, hey, we have this campaign. Will you be part of it? And they were like a last minute addition because we knew that their fans were like crazy rabid
Completely.
on social media.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so they said yes. They joined this campaign and we hit all of our goals and hit all of our metrics. And so that was one that I think about a lot where I'm like, thank goodness that someone realized that this was happening on social media and seeing the data. And also thank goodness we're YouTube and can almost ask anyone to be part of a campaign. And then ultimately YouTube did even deeper partnerships with them on the YouTube music side. But one campaign or one stunt that I thought was really good was back when Handmaid's Tale was just coming out. I don't know if people remember, they sent those people in the red robes just walking in groups in LA.
Yes.
And it was freaking people out. And I remember after that stunt, every time we were working with an agency, we're like, remember this? We want to do something like that. And so I do think there are certain companies, I think Netflix probably actually does a really great job of this, does a great job with stunts. But BTS really helped us out.
Oh, yeah.
They really helped us out on that.
Thank you, boys.
Yeah. No, seriously, thank
Shout
you.
out to the boys.
If you're all out there still performing, thank you.
That's so awesome. And man, yeah, now I'm just thinking of all these amazing activations that brands have done. Severance, they had all of their actors come into a train station and like they put a glass box around them. And just in the middle of the train station, they were pretending to be their Annies, who are like the people that they become when they're at work. They also had them go out, I think maybe in London,
Mhm.
to like a central square and walk around with balloons and just be creepy. And
Mhm.
it seriously just like their like earned media for that season was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I do think like I find the companies who are able to one ideate and come up with a creative idea and then execute it and just have the support of the company, I think is always really, really powerful because it gives your marketing team a bit more flex. Because once you launch something more guerrilla like that,
Mhm.
there are actual extensions that can come from it that are more directly tied to your ROI. But it's hard to break. It's really hard to break through. I remember I can't remember the artist, but the artist was like hiding tickets to their concert wherever city they were and posting on social. It was like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
There's lots of different executions that I've seen, but ultimately, if your fan is engaged with you and they're following along, I think that can help heighten it. And then, like, train station and the
Mhm.
guys in the glass box, so many people were probably taking pictures, posting it, texting about it.
Yeah.
You get to become part of whatever the campaign is, and I think that
Mm.
is also really cool when it's something that you get to experience, but you also get to put regular people into that experience as well.
Completely, completely. Well, Shar, I could talk to you forever, but I will let you off the hook. Thank you so, so much for your
Thank
time and
you.
for
This was fun.
all of the gold nuggets that you have left us with.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, thank you very much for having me, and I hope I get to come back next year.
Oh, please. We would love it.